What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I'm out here in the shop tonight. I finally got electricity back. It's been 9 days I've had no electricity. The last few videos I've done, it's been running on a generator over here in the corner, and if you do the math on it, the thing ran 203 hours. I'll show you the hour meter on there. You can go back and compare it to the previous videos. I don't really think that I showed maybe when I first started it, but I did show after it had ran like a day. So you can go back and kind of do the math on it, figure it out, but I'll show you in a minute. 203 hours on that. My parents, they got electricity back sooner. I'd carried this light tower here that I propped up against to them. They got electricity back a whole lot sooner than I did, and I was a day late getting it there to them as well. So they only ran this thing for 54 hours. So not terrible at all. But me, on the other hand, I put a lot of hours on that welder generator back there in the corner. I'll take you over there and show you in a minute. But basically, I lost electricity at 10 minutes to 9 Thursday morning. I think that was August 27th that the storm come through, Hurricane Laura came through. And I did not get electricity back till a week later on Friday night at about 10 minutes to 9 p.m. So that's 204 hours basically that I was without electricity. The generator ran 203 hours of that and never shut it off. It shut down one time on a low fuel shutdown. It has, the computer will shut it down before it runs completely out of fuel and sucks air. The computer will shut the machine down. So it shut down one time on a low fuel shutdown. I was going to get diesel and I did make it back in time. Those of you seen that video already know this, but that's the only reason it was turned off. I'd never checked the oil in it or nothing. When it shut down, I put fuel in it, cranked it back up, and let it run until I got electricity back. So I never imagined having to run that thing 9 days straight with out shutting it down. That's a pretty good test for a welder generator or any generator. I'm pretty sure if I would have had one of those automated Generac, like the Guardian series that everybody buys, the thing would have been burnt up. They're not made to run like that. They're mostly made to run 4 to 5 hours, normal power outage, and be shut down until the next time it's needed. And it starts back up and it does its little 15-minute run or 20-minute run once a week. But I know there's a lot of people buying them after this, but I think they're going to be sadly disappointed if this ever happens again, because I don't think those things will hold up. If anybody watches this video has any experience with them, personal experience with them, you had one, I don't know, I've never had one, but from what I've read, they're just not that great. It's a 3,600 RPM, basically lawnmower engine, basically, and it's air cooled. They're just not made to run for a week without shutting it down, and I think Generac will tell you that when you buy it if you ask. But if you don't ask questions, I think they pretty well don't tell you about it until after they sell it to you, and then something happens to it, and then they say, oh, it wasn't made to do that, Well, what's the deal? I wanted something when I bought this stuff. This is rental grade equipment. I bought it from a rental company, used, obviously. This is probably $60,000 worth of equipment, new. So no way could I pay $60,000 for it for 2 light towers and 2 welder generators. I did pay a pretty good penny for this stuff anyway, and I was kind of having regrets after I bought it. I was like, man, did I really need that stuff? But the reason I bought it was I've always wanted a light tower, and I got over there and I was like, well, if something happens to one of them, it'd be nice to have 2, and I could see some projects where I could use 2. The other thing is my old welder generator over here is right here. I've had this thing since about 2009, 2010. It was used when I got it. I think it's a 98 model, 98 or 99, one of those. I don't really remember. Anyway, I've only put about 300 hours on this thing since I had it. It did get used as a generator when I was working on my house. When I first bought the place, it didn't have any electricity here, and I was using it for a generator. But it only ran, 8 to 10 hours a day. When I was working on my house, it never ran 24 hours in a day. But I tried to use it during a power outage one time, and it would not start my air conditioning unit. It run the lights and stuff, but it wouldn't start my air conditioning unit. It's only a 8 kilowatt continuous 9 kilowatt surge generator, and it is a 3600 RPM. It's a diesel engine. It's a little Kubota diesel in there. I think it's an 18 horsepower. It's loud. It does work. It welds good and everything. But I was looking to upgrade to something a little bigger, and that's when I ran across these Miller 400s here. And I looked at the specs on them. These have the 3-phase power option here, which is 12,000 continuous watts with a 15,000 watt surge. And that is very conservative. I got some videos on my channel where I tested it with a amp clamp, and it is quite a bit more than that. But anyway, these machines have the CV feeder option, CV voltage for running a wire feeder, which I have right there. I used to run this wire feeder off of this machine. So they had everything I wanted, and they had 2 identical machines. So I wound up buying both of them, and I said, well, you know, I can always sell one. But come to find out, this one here had a bad computer on it. I wound up having to replace the computer on it. But other than that, I've had no problems. I've run this one here about 15 hours, I think, welding with it, with my wire feeder. And I think about 4 hours that I run it during a power outage. This one here, I'll turn the hour meter on here so you can see, so you can compare it to the previous video. 4,526.4. I think it had 4,324 or 23 point something hours. So we're going to call it 203 hours. If I go back to here, this was set at 1,000 whenever I got it. That's a maintenance interval. For the oil change, I believe. I thought these were 500-hour oil changes, but I believe it's a 1,000 the way they got the reset done. So if you do 1,000 minus 794.6, basically 795, the machine's ran 205 hours since I had it. Now, I ran the machine a couple hours of that, testing it and diagnosing the issue with the computer whenever I got it, because it would not weld, wouldn't put out generator voltage. And so that's where the other 2 hours came from. I've had no issues with the machine. As I say, it ran 24 hours a day for 9 days and only shut down one time. The only issue that I did have, and I'll take you around here and show you, is the fuel filter started leaking. I got this exhaust up here too that I rigged up. I did this with it running and it was hot. So now that it's not running and not hot, I could probably do a little better job. But I didn't have any real problems with this. This bracket here was getting a little bit hotter than I like. I didn't have any issues with it, but what I may do is cut a piece of aluminum to go behind here just to dissipate the heat off that board. Tested this with the infrared gun. It was about 120 degrees. You could touch it, but you didn't want to hold it very long. So a piece of aluminum behind that would definitely dissipate the heat a little more. Other than that, no issues whatsoever with the exhaust thing I rigged up. I came over here with the machine running, and I've seen a little bit of fuel on the floor here, and I was trying to figure out where it's coming from. And this filter right here, this fuel filter, was spraying a little bit of fuel out between the gasket and the seat right there, and it was leaking down in there, running down on the floor. I took a pair of big channel locks and grabbed the filter right there and turned it just maybe like 1/8 of a turn. And it stopped leaking and no more issues. It took some brake clean while it was still running. It took the non-flammable brake clean, obviously, and sprayed in here and cleaned the stuff off. No issues whatsoever. Guys, I may have told you a story on this machine right here. I'm thinking I want to say for some reason it had 28 something or 2,900 hours. I don't 100% remember what the hour meter had on it when I bought this thing, because it's been over 10 years ago. But it's got 3396 and some change on it there now. So it could be like 500 hours on this machine that I've put on it in 10 years. Either way, over 10 years, that's not really a lot. So somewhere between 300 and 500 hours on this machine in 10 years. Just wanted to clarify that. Anyway, back to this machine over here, 203 hours, just over a week. If you were renting one of these, they allow you basically 40 hours a week, I think, or 160, some of them would go 168 hours in a month. Either way, if I would have rented this, I would have had to have paid a 1 month rental plus a day or two for the hours that I put on this thing, which I don't know right offhand what one of these would rent for, but I'm guessing a couple of $100 a day. And usually 3 days equals a week. So I would guess probably maybe $700 a week or something would be, and then you do that 3 times plus a little bit. So I'm guessing if you were to rent one of these you would have to pay a 1 month rental to use the 203 hours, even though you did it in a week. They go by hours. You're only allowed, usually with the rental companies that I've seen, 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week, or 160, some of them go 168 hours in a month. But generally that's it. So you would have had to pay a 1 month rental on this, which I'm guessing would cost you about $2,500, maybe a little more, because it was actually over the hours of the 1 month, what a 1 month rental would cover. So, you know, that goes a long way for paying for the machine, because these machines here go generally for about $5 grand a piece. If you find one below that, it's a pretty good deal if it's in good shape, less than, you know, 5,000 hours or so on the machine. This one has 4,500 hours. This one has 3,400 hours. So anyway, that's about what you can expect to pay for these if anybody's curious. If you find one for less than 5 grand and nothing's wrong with it, it's a pretty good deal. I've seen them priced between $5,000 and $7,000. That's about what they go for. So as I say, it's a pretty good investment. I could have bought one of the small Generac standby generators for that amount of money. It would have been more time I got it installed, obviously, for a backup generator. But going with this unit here, it also welds, and it's also industrial. Now they do have timing belts on them because this is a Dutch engine that has to be changed, and that's something I'm going to have to do in the future. But that's considered a maintenance thing. You're really supposed to do it, according to Miller, every 5 years or 6,000 hours. There's no way in the world you'll ever put 6,000 hours on this thing in 5 years. As a homeowner, even at a normal shop, you probably won't. These machines are obviously made to run, you know, like on a pipeline or something. These are 1800 RPM generators, and if you've done any research on generators, if you don't know anything about them, 1800 RPM welders and generators are a lot more expensive than a 3600 RPM unit, and they're also a lot more durable, and they run a lot longer than a 3600 RPM unit. So if you're looking at a generator, try to get an 1800 RPM generator if you can afford it. And if you plan to keep it for a long time, put a lot of hours on it. Let's talk about fuel usage. How much fuel did I use to run this thing 203 hours, which is 8.5 days technically, without ever shutting it off? The answer to that is roughly 115 gallons. I don't know like down to the 10th of a gallon because I didn't finish filling it back up after I shut it down. But based on the math I did off of 1 tank of fuel and averaging the gallons I put in it out to the next time it got low, and sometimes I filled it back up before it got all the way low, but based on the math, right around 115 gallons of fuel for the 203 hours, which if you do the math on that is just over a half a gallon an hour. It's like 0.54, 0.55, somewhere in that range, which is not bad whatsoever. If you tried to run a gasoline generator that long, you would probably need a 500 gallon tank. You would be tired of pouring gas in that thing. These have almost a 25 gallon tank. I think Miller says 24.75. There's a reserve built in there. I was thinking it was 3 gallons. It may be 4 gallons. Basically, if you don't let it run out till it shuts down fuel, you can put about 20 gallons of fuel in. It's what I found, or maybe just a touch over that if you top it all the way up. And basically, it'll run about 36 hours on that is about when I've been filling it up. It's about every 36 hours. So every 36 hours, put 20 gallons in it. It's kind of what the math came out to be. These things have considerable amount of surge wattage, and it will start my 4-ton AC unit. I don't think that it would start a 5-ton. I could be wrong. I don't have one to try. The lights do dim pretty decent whenever my 4-ton AC kicks on, but it does the job, and it's did the job for 9 days straight. And 95-degree weather that we have here in Louisiana, hot, humid, and man, I could not have made it without this. There's no way in the world I could have slept in my house without this. So I'm really glad that I bought this. Maybe I didn't need 2 of them, but at least one of them I'm really glad I bought. I'm probably going to keep both of them now, to be honest, though. I'm very happy with my purchase. Everybody around here, around my area, is pretty much miserable. I think anybody affected has been without electricity that wasn't prepared. It's a miserable time. The first day or two, you can get by, especially if it's on the weekend, you're not having to go to work or whatnot. But if you've got a job that you got to go to, and you get up, you don't sleep well because it's hot, you get up, you're trying to get ready to go to work, you have no electricity, you have no lights, you have no nothing, everything in the refrigerator's burned. You usually wind up going to get a motel. Well, that turns into be pretty expensive for a week stay in a motel. So, I'm pretty happy with my purchase. As I say, it's not as nice as some of the higher end, standby generators. If you spend 20 grand on one of those, you probably have a pretty nice unit. But from the ones that I've seen that people are paying $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for, they're really, they're not made to run a week straight. And I got a feeling you would burn the thing up. These light towers, same kind of deal. These are basically 6 kilowatt generators. This thing ran at my parents' house 54 hours, never being turned off. They got electricity back. The only issue with it is it could use a new fan belt. This fan belt is extremely loose, and as you can see there, it needs a new one, or at minimum needs that one tightened up. This fan belt was squealing a little bit when I first cranked it up till it got warm, and after the belt warmed up, it quit slipping. And like I say, it ran 54 hours. I've also used this thing another time for about 10 or 12 hours. So I've used this 60-something hours, or well, between me and them, it's been around 60-something hours. The other light tower over there I have not used at all, other than just messing with it here in the shop. But this one has been used, so another good purchase. So the fuel usage on the light tower here that I let my parents borrow for a generator, it wasn't under full load, obviously. We didn't have any lights on or anything. So the fuel usage with the lights on and stuff would obviously be more. They use more electricity than what we had going on it. Basically, I hooked her up a window unit, a 15,000 BTU window unit, 110 volt window unit they had. I hooked up the TV, I hooked up the refrigerator, and then like a little lamp. She did need to wash some clothes, so I hooked that up as well, so she could wash clothes, a couple loads of clothes. But that's basically all I hooked up. And so the fuel usage on this was less than 0.3 of a gallon an hour. So probably every 3.5 hours or so, I used a gallon of fuel. So that's really fuel efficient. And the thing is really quiet, being enclosed like it is. And it's 1800 RPM unit. Like I say, it's only a 6,000 watt generator, so it won't run, an AC unit, a central AC unit or anything like the welders over there will. But it's still much more durable, industrial built than the little 6,000, 6,500 watt gas generators. Way more fuel efficient. People were paying $1,000+ for the 6,500 watt gas generators if they could find one. There was people driving out of state, Texas and Mississippi, to buy generators because there was none to be had. Arkansas as well. So people were driving out of the surrounding states to go and try to buy, 6,500 watt generators because that's all they could get their hands on, and just trying to keep their freezers and be able to have some kind of window unit for AC, some kind of lights, refrigerator and a TV or whatnot. A lot of people were staying in motels if they could find one out of town that had power still, that wasn't booked up already. People were staying in motels and stuff. And so, you know, I spent quite a bit of money when I bought this stuff, you know, and after I bought it, I was like, you know, I don't know if I really should have bought all that stuff. For the amount of money I paid for this, you know, I could have bought a pretty new or a brand new, you know, really nice side by side or whatnot. But after going through 9 days with no electricity and seeing everybody else rush around, panicked, you know, driving out of state, trying to find generators for themselves, their parents, whatnot, the deal with the gas shortage, you know, those residential generators are basically throwaway units. They won't last all that long, and you have to put fuel in them every 5 or 6 hours. This thing here will run 2+ days, maybe 3 days, 24 hours a day before you have to put fuel in it. So, you know, I didn't have to go through any of that headache that everybody else was going through. The only issue I had was trying to get a little bit of diesel fuel, and you know, I could have got some out of my 18-wheeler or a tractor's full of fuel. So I had different sources. I called my friend Jake. I got some fuel from him. I siphoned the fuel out of that light tower over there one time. I got low in my transfer tank, so I did wind up siphoning the fuel out of that light tower over there. My parents had this one. So that's really the only issue I had is, you know, not having enough fuel available to be able to pump in there. I had some, like I say, in my big truck I could have siphoned out. I just really didn't want to go through the trouble to siphon it out. I didn't have a pump I could stick in there easily and pump it into the welder. So it would have to been siphoned into a can and then poured in there. But it was an option if it got that bad. It definitely was an option on the table. But still, way better than, you know, having a gas generator. You would not believe the lines at the gas stations when I drove by. You know, the people that had the small generators only had like 2 to 3 5-gallon cans. Were going to the gas station every day trying to get gas. And there would be a line, like there's only a couple of gas stations around, you know, that had any power. And there would be people, the parking lot filled up, people lined up down the shoulder of the road or in on the 4-lane, be people lined up in the right-hand lane for a quarter of a mile. I'm sure they sat there an hour and a half or 2 hours to get gas every day. Obviously, as the week went on and more people got power, the less people needed to go get gas every day, so it got better. And the more gas stations got their power back, you know, the more gas stations are open and whatnot. But everybody around was going through the same thing, and that's something I did not want to participate in. And so I'm really thankful that I made this purchase and had enough diesel on hand to get me through the first 2 days before I had to worry about it. And then, you know, like I say, you seen the video, I called my friend Jake when I ran into the issue. They didn't want to take my check at the truck stop I used to buy fuel at, and the card machine was down. So I called my friend Jake. He's got a farm. He had some fuel on hand. Went and filled up my transfer tank. I was good for another couple of days there, or 3 days. And then I finally went back. Everybody else had got electricity by then, and it wasn't a big deal to get fuel that last time. And I did, in between that, siphon some fuel out of the light tower over there and filled up the welder and everything. So I think it was a good purchase to have this stuff on hand, and I didn't have to worry about having power or whatnot. I was able to provide a generator for my parents to use for, you know, a couple of days. It didn't cost them nothing. If they would have had to go out and buy, you know, $1,000 generator, or if they'd have tried to rent something, it would have cost them probably close to that, because they would have been over the 40-hour weekly rental, which would probably cost you, these light towers rent for about $1.50 a day. So that'd be $450 for a week plus the tax and stuff, probably $600 a week to rent one of these, and they would have been over the 40-hour weekly rental rate in about a day and a half. Yeah, well, close to 2 days. But they would have went over that, so they would have probably spent $800 to rent this for the hours they put on it, you know. So glad I was able to provide them with a generator as well as have some stuff myself, and didn't have to go through a lot of the stuff that everybody else was, the panic and, you know, dealing with the crowds, trying to rush around, drive out of state to find a generator, trying to find gas for it. You know, I think people were driving, you know, 50, 100 miles to try to get gas and stuff. It was pretty insane. I really never thought that whenever I bought this stuff that, you know, I would be without electricity for 9 days and have to go through that. I figured at the most that I would ever be without power would be maybe 2 or 3 days. I've been without that before, here pretty recently actually. We had a tornado come through that I was without power for a couple of days. But I figured that would be the most, that would probably ever be out, 2 to 3 days, maybe even when this hurricane came through. I figured, that'd probably be the case. But turns out it was not. I definitely think it's a good idea to be prepared, whatever the case though. And if you live in a rural area, it's a good idea to already have a generator, and or if you can weld, a welder generator for a multi-purpose unit, and have a chainsaw on hand, because you probably will have to cut some trees out of your yard, because after a storm hits like that, or hurricane or tornado, there's a bunch of tree damage and nobody has electricity. It's a seller's market for generators and chainsaws. You will try to drive around and you will pay way more than what you could have bought one and have on hand originally. So very thankful to have something in stock in order to use. I did not need a chainsaw. I had no tree damage at my place, but I do have one if I had needed one. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap this video up. It's getting kind of long. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.